So do you guys like Wera? Have you ever seen, well, holy heck. Just a friendly reminder, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris, and in this video we're going to be looking at a bunch of different tools here. If you like taking things to the absolute maximum to see how well they perform, you're going to really enjoy checking out the Wera Zyklop's 8004B 3/8" drive ratchet. We're going to have that one go up against the PITTSBURGH Professional dual drive. So you got your 3/8 and your 1/4" long flex ratchet, and that one's going to be pretty sweet because if you think about it, it's actually slimmer than the Wera Zyklop's. So the only question left is one cheaper, and does one have an easier warranty? We're also going to be checking out what would have been the 1/4 and 3/8, so another dual drive PITTSBURGH Professional, and that one happens to be the fixed handle. And then finally we're going to use the Crescent dual material handle. So basically you got a comfort grip ratchet here. This is going to be the bigger head out of all of them, but this is also relatively inexpensive on Amazon. So if you guys like taking your tools to the absolute maximum performance, stick around because we also have a bonus surprise in here, which we're going to tear into right about now. And that makes short work of your Amazon packaging. And inside here, for the very first time, thanks to one of my subscribers, they said, Chris, I've had really good luck with the Dewalt branded ratchets, and here is the 3/8" drive quick release 72 tooth ratchet that I picked up on Amazon. So big shout out to the gentleman that mentioned test one of these out, because I did do a fixed head version of this. Link up above in the descriptions to that ratchet torture testing, but also all the ratchets here today, they all happen to be quick release. So let's get down to testing these ratchets and see how well they perform. So we're going to start things off with our Rad Torque Systems Smart Socket. Now this was acquired through Torque Tools Inc. This is basically the pivotal part of our entire thing, where we use this to connect via Bluetooth to a digital device that allows us to display everything on screen when it comes to graphing torques. Now we do use some reducing adapters. We got some from Harbor Freight there. Then we also do use the Gray's Pneumatic reducing adapters. These help give you a little bit more low profile. So we go from 1" to 3/4, 3/4 to 1/2 inch. And then depending on the configuration, so if we want to do some validation measurements, we go ahead and use our Quinn digital torque adapter. This is really handy, inexpensive, and allows you to measure all your torque devices that you might use. And again, it's cheap and it's accurate and it works. So we use that, and then when and where needed, we use the PITTSBURGH 3-piece square drive socket adapters. That's part number 67011. Here we have the PITTSBURGH Pro 3/8" dual drive. We're gonna go ahead and see how this works by hand. You can see by hand, you're able to get about 66.2 to 67 foot-pounds on there. We'll go ahead and test that out a couple more times. So if it makes it to 150 foot-pounds, everything on there is what you would expect. So we're gonna go ahead and do just that. Take it to 150 foot-pounds. And we hit around 157 foot-pounds. Let's see if this thing still works. Still sounds really nice and smooth. So if you were to see the length on that, you can see that it's about 6 3/4 inch, and there's absolutely zero way that you could put that much force on that tool by hand. Even if you were using your legs and forcing that thing, because the profile on that is so thin, it just cuts and digs into your hand. So literally taking this to failure by hand is really not an option. So we're gonna go ahead and use that cheater pipe, and we'll take this to failure and see just how much torque this thing can handle. We can see that the anvil sheared off at 255 foot-pounds. And believe it or not, The internals on that are sounding still pretty good. That's pretty impressive for such a low profile ratchet. So here we have the Pittsburgh dual drive. We got our 1/4 and our 3/8 inch. That's the long handle flex ratchet. That'll run you roughly $29.99, so it's relatively inexpensive. We do have it set up here. We're gonna go ahead and just take that 1/4 inch to failure and see how that one performs. And if you're able to break it with the length that this tool comes right out of the bat, we can tell that typically something like this is gonna break at around 65 to 75 foot-pounds. So you have no issue breaking 1/4 inch on there. It snaps the anvil right off at 71 foot-pounds. So the internals on there are still intact, and it was just a pure anvil failure, and it sheared off really, really nicely if you take a look at that. So the 1/4 inch on there, really well done. That definitely meets and exceeds ASME spec. So if we compare these two really quickly, we can see that the fixed head and the flex head, well, I can tell you this one is a little bit bigger in size, but hopefully the internals should be about the same. And I'm wondering if this will be our weak point. My guess is it won't be, but it could be where the pin is, but let's find out. So we'll go ahead and take this by hand to 150 foot-pounds or over. Now, the one thing to mention on this, because this is so slim, you can see that we do really smash into our hand when we put a lot of torque on there. But all in all, let's go ahead and measure that with the socket on there and see. So that really does have a nice amount of play in there. If you needed to come in and get on your fastener, it really does work really nicely. Over time, if that slop continues in there, you know, you might be able to tighten it up, but let's see how much torque it would require to be able to warranty one of these things out. Inside still sound good. Let's go ahead and take this one to failure. So we did see that the fixed dual drive from Harbor Freight did about 250 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and see how well this performs. So you can see at 249 foot-pounds, we actually did end up shearing that pin off on there. But the internals and the anvil on that drive, wow, look at that right there. That is completely destroyed. Wow, we just tore that apart. But 249 foot-pounds will definitely do that, and I can tell you that this will not flex like you would expect it to anymore. So here we have the Wera Zyklop's 8004B. One thing that we did see on there is the ball detent is rather small compared to like a Cobalt or even the Pittsburgh Professional, where that has no issues and doesn't slide off. The Wera Zyklop's does have issues and pulls right off of that socket, which could be a major problem for you depending on what socket brand you use. Now, this is a Thornton made in the USA, so they don't make this anymore, but I use it and it still works very well for me. So I would expect my tools to make sure that they still work. So that could be a big problem for you. Just make sure that's the first thing that you test if you buy this Wera Zyklop's ratchet is, do you have that problem with the ball detent and the sockets? Now, because this tool is made in the Czech Republic, it actually is going to fall under an ISO standard instead of an ASME spec, but at the end of the day, the conversion on the ISO is roughly 148 to 149 foot-pounds. So we're going to just take this to 150 foot-pounds and see how well the Wera Zyklop's performs. I'll go ahead and give that handle a little extra workout. So we can see we took the Wera Zyklop to 156 foot-pounds. Sounds flawless. No issues other than the ball detent doesn't hold on that. Man, it's probably the most frustrating out of all the tools that I've seen would be the ball detent on there. Man, that just is too bad. Let's go ahead and take the Wera Zyklop to failure and see how well it performs. Well, this is a quick release 72 tooth ratcheting mechanism. Sheared off at 200. Oh, it didn't even shear off. We destroyed the internals on this ratchet. So Wera Zyklop's internals destroyed at 266 foot-pounds. So we're going to take the Dewalt ratchet to failure. Just a quick reminder, a big shout out to Eduardo. He sent me a message and said, you know what, I've had really good luck with the Dewalt brand tools. He had the blackout version. I just happened to get the chrome version on Amazon. Internals should be roughly about the same. Looks to be a decent tool, have no doubt about it. I did test out the non-quick release version of the Dewalt ratchet. That'll be linked up above in the cards as well as down below in the description. It does have a nice slim head on there, and if you were to compare something like that to the Wera Zyklop, I'd actually say that it's slightly bigger, but as far as width, this is going to be smaller. And so depending on what you're willing to pay for a tool, believe it or not, they do make one of these in a flex head. You can get it on Amazon. It's not a quick release though. I do like the selector switch on the Wera Zyklop. But all in all, if you pick that up for $20, that's a decent deal, as well as you can pick up a whole set of these with a bunch of sockets, and that might even be a better deal for you. But not a bad tool, and supposedly DeWalt's got a really easy warranty. Let's go ahead and take the Dewalt ratchet to failure and see how well it performs. Here we go with the Dewalt to failure. So there you can see we did shear off the anvil. Nice clean shear at 267 foot-pounds on the Dewalt ratchet. So really decent results when it comes to looking at Dewalt. Now the Crescent branded ratchet, it's relatively inexpensive. This can be had for under $15 on Amazon. We'll go ahead and use our socket here. We can see that it does not slip off or have any issues, which is a good thing because there are certain brands out there that will slip off. This has a large ball detent on there and a dual material handle. So you're able to put down a decent amount of torque. So we got about 70 foot-pounds on there, and it doesn't hurt your hand. Now we'll go ahead and put our foot on the workbench and see how much torque. Oh, one thing I really got to mention about this one is you really got to pay attention to that handle. So you can see that the metal doesn't go all the way to the end on there, and when you put a lot of torque on that, we'll see if we can show you here, that really moves. Look at that end there. Oh my gosh, look at that. You can see that we're deforming the handle because the metal doesn't go all the way to the end. So that's something that you really got to be aware of when you're looking at a different type of tools out there. All right, so we'll go ahead and take this up to 150 foot-pounds, which is ASME spec, and we'll see how this ratchet performs. So we're up to about 158 foot-pounds. Everything really nice internally. No issues, no problems. Grip's still nice, except for it's got that extra amount of play in there. So we're going to go ahead and take the Crescent ratchet to failure and see how well it performs. This should do pretty well. It seems pretty beefy. Let's find out. So we peaked at around 202 foot-pounds, and the internals on there are starting to slip. Let's go ahead and give this a little rotate, and hopefully we can grab this again and maybe get a higher peak out of there. Similar results to how the internals break on some of the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh ratchets, where the actual pawl is really just taking chunks out of the internal gear. So let's go ahead and take this to failure. So 211 foot-pounds, and you can tell that it is still grabbing, but I guarantee if we open that up, the internals on that are going to be shelled. So before we get to that final recap, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the channel, as well as commenting down below what kind of ratchets you want to see, as somebody suggested that Dewalt one, as well as the Wera Zyklops, and we most certainly did those today. Now, when it comes to looking at the ratchets that we tested out today, we're going to throw up a chart that's going to show all of the torque ratings that we've done so far, and you can see that the Dewalt came in at 267 foot-pounds, which fared pretty well out of the bunch that we had today. Shortly behind that was the Wera Zyklop at 266 foot-pounds. Now, when it comes to looking at the Harbor Freight ratchets, you can see that we had one in at 255 foot-pounds and another one at 249 foot-pounds. When we look at these, as well as the Crescent, when it comes to price per dollar ratio, those tools perform very, very well. So when it comes to looking at not only these tools here and every other one out there, it looks like so far we're all meeting and exceeding the minimum rated specifications, whether it's ISO for something like the Wera Zyklop or ASME spec, which those two standards are really, really close to the same. But make sure you're choosing the right tool that works good for you. Sometimes you like a comfort grip. That also might be what I like to refer to as a very good ratchet to choose in cold weather. Or you like something that doesn't have a chrome finish, that matte finish doesn't have the glare. I can tell you this photographs and also videos way better than the chrome when it comes to that lighting, refraction, and bouncing back. But again, some people like quick release, some people don't, and they want to stick to something like a Tekton, Snap-on, Milwaukee, or even Mac tools. Anyways, guys, make sure you're choosing the right tool for the right job. These are putting way more torque than we should on our tools, but it is a lot of fun to do this. It looks like we should wrap things up. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, work smarter, not harder. And we'll catch you in the next video. Just a friendly reminder, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.